32 of Marketing Pains. My name is Will Hankey. This is the podcast where we talk with window treatment and awning experts, service providers, business owners about their successes, their struggles related to marketing their business. Today, I've got an exciting guest that I've known for quite a while, Kelsey Stuart from Bloomin Blinds. Kelsey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Will. I really appreciate you having me on. Kind of pretty excited about it.
Yeah, excited to have you here. We've been working together in a couple different ways for a while, and excited to have you on to kind of bring in something we've never done before, which is talk to somebody who offers a franchise model for the window treatment industry. So a little bit different. I'm excited to get your insights since you have insights across a bunch of different dealers, a bunch of different locations, and just kind of learn more about how your system works, what you guys offer, the benefits of doing so, and those kinds of things. So let's get started. Give me the 2-minute elevator pitch about Bloomin Blinds.
Well, we're a full service window treatment company. So we're much like your audience, or much like most window covering companies that you would, normally interact with, or people that we know in the industry. So we offer the full spectrum of products. We do a little bit on the outdoor with the exteriors. Part of our differentiation or value proposition in the space is we actually like repairs. I know that's a bit different than most would look at the window covering world, but that's how we grew up. We actually, as a family business, before we franchised, we fixed and cleaned blinds 3 years before we ever sold a single one.
Okay.
So we just kind of grew up on the maintenance side of things. So that makes sense to us. Of course, the money's made in the sales. Like, we all know that. But
Sure.
There are some benefits that I enjoy out of the repairs. It's just kind of fun and feels good. As a franchise model, we're a small family business that got to a pretty good sized family business, and then learned that we wanted to expand and grow in different ways than just more stores, more locations, more cities. And we're a family unit. We didn't want to break up the family unit by sending one to Kansas City and one to Oklahoma City. And so we took the path of franchising and teaching other people how to work within the window covering space, and then providing a system to support them and help them along the way.
Yeah, I like how you guys embrace the whole family thing too. I know that your annual or somewhat annual meeting is called the family reunion, right?
Family reunion. Yeah, it's not an annual conference. It's a family reunion.
That's awesome. I like that. So tell me about your role in Bloomin Blinds right now.
Well, over the 21 years I've been here, it's evolved. So my mom started it, and I was, a year after she started it, I jumped in. So that's 2002. The current role I play, on my business card, it says CEO. The truth is there's 3 brothers that run the company. Mom's now retired. So I was pretty influential in the early daydreaming and the pushing us out of our comfort zones and things like that. Now I spend a lot of my time in the communication and support of the franchise owners. Certainly on the executive side, the planning and strategy of building the business. But my day-to-day stuff is working with people who are interested in coming on board as a franchise owner, and then guiding, coaching, helping those that are already in the system. So I'm more of a teacher now than a doer by far.
Yeah. It's interesting, as businesses get bigger, it's no matter how big we get, it seems like we're always still kind of pulled towards sales. In some sort of little way, we're always kind of, still involved in that process. We refuse to get out 100%.
I love the chase. I love the pick me and they didn't pick you. Like that's exhilarating. And that really doesn't matter. What I found is that it doesn't matter to me which widget it is.
Right.
It could be window coverings. It could be that I got the last one on the rack, haha, it's a great price and I got it. You didn't.
Right.
I think that speaks to the competitive nature that it takes to build a business. I don't know that I'll ever get away from it.
For sure. Yeah. There's always, like I said, you're always going to have kind of at least have your foot in the water a little bit on the sales side. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty common for entrepreneurs. So you mentioned your mom started it. Did she just start it as one little kind of like mom and pop uh, window covering business, like a lot of the people do nowadays?
Well, so Bloomin Blinds is actually like the second iteration of her in the window covering space.
Okay.
So we grew up in Washington State, just north of Seattle. Um, she ran a one-woman window covering company that did sales, cleaning, and repair as a one-woman show in Seattle for 7 years. After divorce, she wanted out of town, so she moved to Dallas, and all of us kind of migrated this way fairly quickly. And again, she set off Bloomin Blinds with the full intention of being a one-woman show again. Like
Right.
our participation wasn't part of the plan. As opportunity came up, we started slowly jumping in. The middle brother, Chris, was the first one to jump in. I jumped in almost a year later. And then the youngest one, Kevin, jumped in probably 2-3 years later. And it was more of a function of entrepreneurial nature. She's a serial entrepreneur as well. And so she saw a hole in the market. She saw an opportunity, something sparked her curiosity. And without any planning or thinking it through, off she went, like most entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
Like that's the old, I remember when I was in high school, there was a shirt that Nike had. I think it was Nike, but it was elevate and then decide in the air.
Right.
Right.
I've
It's a
heard
basketball
something similar,
reference.
build the plane while you're flying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to figure it out while you're going. And that's
Yeah.
what entrepreneurs are good at, is that nimbleness and that risk tolerance and the ability to just kind of go because it seems like it's a good idea. You got to test them all.
Right.
So she got to Dallas, started Bloomin Blinds as a one-woman show. Again, at that point, just offering repair and cleaning. And then as we jumped in, we still just offered repair and cleaning for a good 3 years. Then we began to see that our customers were asking us like, hey, while you're here, or, hey, you guys did a great job. Can I buy some stuff from you? And we were constantly sending it back to the retailers that were sending us the repair work because they didn't want to do the work. And we were really hesitant to bite the hand that fed us. But there was a point in which that swell or that volume of interest just couldn't be denied. Like at some point you have to stop pushing away money.
Yeah.
And we very quietly added sales for about 2 years before we ever advertised it. Like we went for a full 5 years of just advertising, cleaning, and repair. And then it got to a point where we could risk losing that referral from the retailers, which ultimately did happen.
Sure.
Because we became a competitor. And then we were just kind of off on, then we're off to the races.
Yeah. Yeah. On the unique selling proposition, you mentioned the repairs. I like the idea of that because it gets you in the door. And as you said, I think most smaller window treatment companies miss that opportunity. They don't want the hassle, I guess, right? But there's some other benefits from doing that besides just, hey, while you're here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can get a review, right? That grows reviews. So there's a digital marketing side to that. Of course, that's always kind of my angle for it. But you also mentioned cleaning. Are you guys still doing cleaning as a service now?
So within the franchise model, it's an approved service. Franchises, if someone's not familiar with how they work, effectively, we as the leadership decide or build out the business model, and franchise owners kind of have to stay within those guardrails.
Sure.
So being that we grew up cleaning, that's certainly an approved service. Also window washing. So we have, basically 4 potential revenue streams. But blind cleaning and window washing are both fairly labor intensive. They're both relatively small tickets. So, you're not going to get rich off doing that. It's just it's another add-on.
Yeah.
And the economy since 8 years ago when we started the franchise has been in a great position. Maybe some days are better than others, but overall we've been in a pretty good position for, since the last recession. And so none of our franchise owners want to take on the job and the effort of the manual effort. Like they're doing just fine selling and repairing blinds, which is the easy stuff. I think those that are building a truly big business will eventually build it out as they have more employees and people that can do those jobs. And I think if we have a big fat recession, I think we'll probably pivot into that a little bit more because the maintenance side does show up stronger when money gets tight.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely makes sense. You don't lead with those services, but they are something that maybe you'll mention while you're there, or you might just stumble across.
Yeah, by and large, we don't spend any marketing money on these services. We
Yeah.
just simply, it's like an incidental buy, or it's just an opportunity that may come about.
Okay, cool. Very good. Thank you for clarifying that. So as you know, this is a marketing podcast. I'm a marketing guy. So let's talk a little bit about that side of the business. So Bloomin Blinds as an entity, what is the product that you're offering to a buyer?
You can think of it as like the analogy that I like to use is a recipe. So it's similar to like going to the store and buying a cake mix in a box, some Betty Crocker mix. You flip it over and it tells you how many eggs, how much milk, how long to cook it, how long to let it sit there. There's a recipe on how to go about daily activity. So there's a lot of that's like within the franchise system. That is, I think that's what you're asking is,
Yeah.
Like, what are we offering as a franchise? Like, why would somebody want a franchise?
Yep.
I guess I'll reframe this a different way. So definitely a recipe, but there's a lot of stuff and a lot of infrastructure and a lot of pieces that an independent business owner has to figure out on their own.
Yeah.
That have already been created for them. Also, how to do the job or how to navigate a customer that's having a hard time, how to market and who to choose, who to work with. All of that is done with a level of knowledge and expertise for the business owner, for the franchise owner, so that they don't have to trial and error with their money. A good franchise system should just be a training and support organization. That should be the emphasis of the franchisor is, if I help your world get better, then I make my money.
Sure.
So that's the focal point on our end is how can I make the owners' lives better, more efficient? How can I help them make more money? And how can I help them get past roadblocks and stumbles that are in their way?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of is that the Pareto principle, 80-20? You can get them 80% of the way down the road, give them the tools, the knowledge, everything right up front where they're like way ahead of somebody who just said, hey, I think I want to start like your mom, right? I mean, hey, I want to start a window covering business. Now what?
Well, yeah. So no doubt franchising costs a bunch of money. Like buying a Bloomin Blinds is not something you do with the money out of the cushions in your couch.
Sure.
Okay. But we kind of use the phrase around here, in business, you either build it or you buy it. Right. And as a standalone operation, you're building out your marketing campaigns. You're trying to figure it out. I mean, even working with you guys, a client is now hiring somebody for their expertise versus trying to figure out how to do SEO on their own. Right.
Sure.
One could do marketing and SEO and digital on their own, but you're paying somebody a fee or some level of expense because they have expertise.
Right.
And there should be value, like that should be an equitable trade, if not a beneficial trade. As a franchise, it's kind of the same thing. It's going to cost a bunch of money, but you probably get there a lot faster.
A lot faster, yeah.
But what it's not, and this may be different than probably servicing your clients, is in franchising, sometimes the impression is that we do it all for you. Basically, like sometimes people have a misconception that we're a stock. You can just throw your money at this and then everything just works magically.
Sure.
And that's not the case.
Yeah.
I would imagine as a marketing team, you're probably a little bit more hand-holding, like, hey, yes, give me a budget to work with and I'll totally take care of everything. Or 95% of everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I think, like I said, with the 80-20, you guys you get them 80% of the way ramped up pretty quickly, right? Versus them trying to figure it out on their own. But they definitely need to put the work in to make it successful.
Yeah, that 80/20 is really true on the infrastructure and the support side of things.
Sure.
Like we use the phrase, there's a lot for you to do, but you're never going to have to figure out what to do.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. Very good. So who is your main kind of like target audience for Bloomin Blinds?
As a consumer or as a franchise owner?
As a
'Cause
franchise. Yeah.
okay, good. Because I kind of have two different customers when you think of it that way.
Sure. Sure.
So franchise owners, what I haven't had any conversions yet. And in the franchising world, that means that there's a independent business owner in the window covering industry that is willing to rebrand into a Bloomin Blinds.
Okay.
I've had a couple conversations about it before, and I know that it's happened in the past, but by and large, our franchise owners, this is probably their first business. They're probably coming out of some sort of corporate environment. Maybe they've been an entrepreneur before or a business owner at some level. I do have a handful of owners that are just kind of serial franchise operators. Like they like the franchising space, they'll build it up, they'll sell it, and they'll go start a new one.
Okay.
But by and large, I think our demographics probably would follow a lot of the window covering treatment ownership. Good, strong amount of husband and wife teams. We've probably got probably 15% of female owners,
Okay.
women who are really kind of wearing all the hats. So in our world, we do our own installs. We don't contract things out. So sales, install, and repair. And the rest of them are guys who are literal guys who are probably 35 to 55. They've been successful enough where they have the funds available to make choices. And they like a coach and a mentor.
Yes.
Window treatments is not rocket science. Like it can be figured out. We didn't have a franchise. We figured it out. But it's people who like to get to the front of the line, who have enough financial money they just have enough money to make those choices. They can buy their way to the front of the line if they want to.
Sure.
But they also appreciate a coach and a mentor because that's pretty heavy within our system. That's a real big emphasis is let us coach you and you'll make more money.
Yep. And the smart ones are going to look for that, right? When I hired a coach, it changed my business dramatically.
It is. There's a humility to taking on coaching. There's a trust factor. Like, okay, yes, I'm paying you, but why would I follow what you're doing? We find that pride is probably the thing that gets in the way the most. And so we actually talk about it quite a bit, and we're trying to bring it to the surface so that we can deal with it or help people realize that it's a stumbling block. But as grown adults, our society doesn't embrace the idea of asking for help or telling people you're new or you don't know what you're doing. That's just not celebrated in our world today.
Yeah.
And so we have to push really hard to try and help people understand that just because I say I want to be a mentor, like that's not show, that's not smoke and mirrors. Like that's literally how you make the most out of a Bloomin Blinds experience.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. All right. So we kind of know what your product is, who your audience is, who you're trying to get that product in one thing. And I know that you guys have had fantastic success. So what do you think is the one thing that is really attributed to your success at this point?
Man, the challenge there is just one thing.
Yeah.
Because success is never one thing, right? Because I think a lot of it kind of centers around the idea that we don't view ourselves as a product. I guess maybe I should clarify. Again, are you talking about the success of the franchise or are you talking about the success of...
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I keep getting lost in which customer we're talking about.
We can go down both roads, by the way, if you want.
Well, so I was headed down the consumer path. I'll finish that one.
Okay.
We recognize that people buy from people, and the way in which we go about things is meant to be very educational, and it's meant to really focus on building a relationship. So sell an emotional experience, not a product. And more often than not, customers tell us that resonates differently. Like not everyone's doing that. That sounds Like if we put that on a test, everyone would get it right. But
Sure.
you put them in a house and you put their money on the line, and it doesn't always go that way. And it doesn't always go that way for us either. But that's the
Yeah.
goal. As a franchise, it may sound crazy, but in the scheme of starting a franchise business, we're on the lower spectrum. We're on the lower third, if not the lower quartile of what it costs to start a franchise. So we're within reach of more individuals, which helps. I think the fact that my brothers and I are still intimately involved and people get to work with the founders, they're not just, treated like an account number or a little cash cow. Like there's a lot of emphasis on family and relationships. And we really try and maintain like a genuine, intimate connection with our franchise owners. I think that resonates, especially if you're looking at us versus like a giant corporation. It's not the same. Now there's benefits to the corporation, but if you want to feel like you're connected to the brand and to the people who are running it, we offer that very easily. It's very transparent and easy going around here. I think I got to give credit to Budget Blinds. Like I think that they've proven that a franchise model can be very successful, can be a strong player in the market. They kind of plowed the road for us. And I'm eternally grateful. I've said this a billion times. Like I love Budget Blinds for what they did and what they proved. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy competing against them or look for, I think of them as they're my Nike. And I have every intention of being the Under Armour.
Yep.
Like no one's going to unseat Nike. I get that. But there's no doubt that Under Armour was able to get there faster and more efficiently than Nike did it because they had the benefit of someone plowing the road ahead of them. And again, I love them, but we'll still go to war.
Yeah.
Well, not war. There's room for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think is the biggest benefit that sets you apart from Budget?
Well, where I think Budget wins is the household awareness. I think Budget Blinds, by and large, is a household name, and that's a competitive advantage. Like they're going to get more cracks at the opportunity than we are, just because that's a household name. They also have an advantage from the marketing because now they're almost $1 billion a year in sales. I mean, it's a massive organization. So that's definitely a benefit. I don't know their systems and their operations, and I don't know how well they train people and things like that. I can imagine they have enough to provide some really good resources. What I have is the intimacy. I have the ability to actually know them and know their kids and know their wives. I mean, not for any nefarious reasons, but there's a lot of franchise owners who I have their wife's phone, we're like the wives are totally comfortable to communicate with us, even if they're not in the business. It's just one of those comfortable relationships.
Yeah. Back to the family thing.
Totally. And you would imagine a company started by mom and ran by three brothers is going to have to embrace that and be good at it. I think we have an advantage on the technology side too. Like we have the benefit of being a relatively young franchise in a very tech heavy world. So we are able to pivot into some of the newer stuff and bring on new pieces because the system's still pretty small. I only have 60 plus franchise owners right now. So it's not like, in Budget, you're trying to onboard 1,400 owners across two nations. Like that's a problem. That's a challenge that nobody wants. So there's a lot of opportunities where we go toe to toe, but we're able to bring in similar products, similar pricing, but we can add some value through the technology that we use. And sometimes that's the differentiator. And then I think the fact that we openly embrace service, I think that gives us some opportunities and kind of creates more of an all-in-one story than a Budget or any other company that is I call it a one-trick pony. That's probably not nice to say, but that's how I get to, that's my selling proposition against it.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a book that came out a while back, Too Big to Fail. I think that kind of speaks to the Budget side. When we come up against them, like marketing locally, most
Yeah.
times they're not paying attention because they're so big. They're not focusing on the local, the SEO, those kind of things.
Right.
And most, so you're in a fantastic position there, where you guys can come in, start doing some things and push them down fairly quickly, which is a great advantage.
Because budget is almost entirely I think they might be entirely franchise. I don't know that they have corporate stores, but we find in a competitive scenario that sometimes those business operators are a little fat and happy. um, you know and we see that all the time, especially when the market gets red hot,
Yeah.
2007, 2006, 2012, 13, 14. It wasn't shooting fish in a barrel, it was shooting fish in a Dixie cup. It was so easy because there was so much work. And I can imagine, I don't know because I don't live in their shoes, but again, I think they get more opportunities than most because of that household name. And so we see elevated prices, we see lack of attention, we see lack of communication. And I'm sure there's some operators who make the most out of all of it. But we definitely come across operators within their system that are just cool to kind of go through the paces because there's another one right behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, anyone, independent or franchise, can capitalize on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think so. So with your role as, even though you're, like you said, on paper CEO, you're still kind of in that training, helping out, coaching area. What do you see as one of the biggest mistakes that your franchisors or just window covering owners in general make on a regular basis?
Ooh. There's going to be, I think, trying to figure out how to put a couple of these into words. So from a marketing perspective, you've got to be in tune with the shifts, because I'll use a recent example. So prior to COVID, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, or as recent as that, you could genuinely build a good business on relatively reasonable pricing from PPC. Like a good solid website and a healthy budget in PPC and an active audience, meaning like the consumers are interested in window coverings. Man, it didn't take a whole lot. Like the wind was at your back and you just it was easy. COVID hits. Granted, all of us in the industry had a really good time during COVID if you were even just moderately paying attention.
Right.
But now coming out of it, there's another shift. And SEO is playing much more relevance now. We're finding that there's a demand to, and it's different for us because we're launching brand new locations. Like we're introducing Bloomin Blinds to a particular city, but the community involvement and getting your name out there beyond the digital aspects.
Oh, I like that.
It's nearly a requirement for us now. We can automate and we can provide support on the digital side. Like I can take that off your plate as a franchise owner. That's easy. But going out and kissing babies, shaking hands, cutting ribbons, throwing a happy hour for some realtors, those are kind of things that we can't do for you. We can give you the ideas, but you got to go execute on them. And the owners, the owners that have really invested a lot of time into that and really made it a driving force of their marketing, in addition to a healthy digital plan, are finding that it's definitely paying off. It's paying off a lot. So we kind of got caught by that. And that's one of the benefits of being intimately connected to your franchise owners, is we only know that because a handful of them said, hey, this digital only thing isn't working so well. What else can I do? And so we sent them out into the public, and all of a sudden it clicked. Yeah. So we got feedback from the ground, or from the franchise owners, that kind of taught us those lessons. So you have to be nimble and you have to pay attention.
Yeah, I like that. Brand exposure is a big part of, especially the early on for.
Yeah, when we launched, it was 2001. Literally, our business was formed the morning of 9/11. Like we filed our business paperwork, and then the towers got hit within hours. Yeah. So we're launching this business, mom's launching this business in the economic environment that followed 9/11. So to get business, she was in a box truck and she would purposely go get stuck in rush hour. She would get some
Oh,
to-go food. She'd get some to-go food because she didn't like to cook. And she would go drive her box truck about 4 or 5 miles down the road in traffic at 15 miles an hour. Then she'd pull off and let that traffic cycle past and then get right back on the freeway and go get stuck again for another 5 miles.
wow.
And that was the most effective early marketing campaign that we had. That was before we even had a website. So it was
That's
either
smart.
yellow. Yeah. So it was all about awareness. Like people needed to know. And even if they don't need blinds right now, if they see your logo during the search and then they've seen it before, like that association brings comfort and much more likelihood that they're going to give you a shot, to give you a call.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's cool. I love that story.
Yeah.
So what has been the biggest challenge promoting Bloomin? And I guess we'll go both directions on this one.
From a consumer, it's just there's a limited amount of funds and there's a whole lot of open space.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the challenge there, right? Like especially if an owner looks at marketing as a bill. It shouldn't be. Marketing is not a bill. It is fuel for your rocket.
Right.
And I use the phrase, if you want to go to Mars, you wouldn't go on a half tank. Like if you have high aspirations, we are in a pay to play world. There is just no way around it. You either accept it or you get beat up by it. And so that can be the challenge. There's, especially for a new business owner, franchised or not, there's so much to learn and so much to get good at. And it all feels critical at the moment. And that's why we've tried to really provide systems and automation and great partners who can help with that process and take a lot of that weight off their shoulders. As a franchise, it's kind of the same story. Like to build the franchise or to attract people who might not even know Bloomin Blinds exists in Cleveland, Ohio. My marketing budget has to go up against McDonald's or Budget Blinds or, like a pet salon that franchised. Like the amount of the depth of pockets within the marketing budget of franchise organizations is massive. And we're still, in the franchising world, we're still a very small player in terms of revenue, available capital, number of franchise owners, things like that. We're still very much young, but we're thrown up in the big leagues because we're a franchise. Like you just instantly are in that realm, and so that's a bit of a challenge there. So you find your ways around it. You find organic growth. You find the pieces where you can kind of slip between the cracks from a digital standpoint. For us, we hired an outside company that has a really strong reputation from a lead flow standpoint. Like people bring candidates to them just because they have a really strong process and systems. So through outsourcing, we gained leverage. But I think a lot of it is just, it's a big, wide open world and you can't spread it too thin. Like you just have to pick your moments and pick your spots. You got to figure out what you're really good at, and then lean into that and stop being everything to everyone.
Yeah. You never get far on that route, do you?
No, you'll be much better as a sniper than a shotgun.
Yeah. So let's talk about the industry real quick, just in general. What do you see? Current trends, changes in the industry, things that we should be paying attention to right now?
Well, I'd say from a sales perspective, right, because we kind of drift towards that again, the outdoor space is still incredibly strong. And it's going to continue to get more saturated, as more and more people wake up. The early adopters, man, you made a heyday. Like it was easy. Nobody knew what it was. It was big. It was expensive. It was technical. And so your exterior products early on, very little competition, but you're getting more and more competitors coming in every day.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
are you talking about exterior roller shades, solar shades, those types of things? Or are you talking about awnings or all of that?
Well, so our frame of reference primarily is exterior roller shades.
Okay.
We recognize and know or believe that awnings is part of our future. As a franchise, it's like, who's going to make them? Can they fit into your systems? How long does it take to train your team to get good at them? Because we got to support it. It's
Yep.
not as simple as an independent dealer who just like, hey, let me go talk to the rep for 3 hours and now I'll go sell some awnings.
A lot
Like, it
more
takes
labor intensive,
yeah,
a lot more procedures, from a business standpoint.
yeah. You got to
To get
set up all
awning.
you got to set up all the infrastructure before you educate your franchise owners.
Yeah.
So we're a bit slower in that way. So the outdoor space still, I think, is red hot. And even if it gets saturated, that's fine, right? Like plantation shutters is fairly saturated, but people are going to pick you because of your confidence and the way you present. So even if it gets busy, like there's still opportunities for those who do it really well.
Yeah.
We've noticed the impact of social media. So we're learning to really lean in and monetize the lead flow that can come off social media. That's another one of those things where I told a franchise owner that he was wasting his time, and then he went out and did it anyways,
Yeah.
and ultimately proved us wrong. And we've now used his experience to actually teach franchise owners like how to navigate that world. Because if you don't do it just right, it's really hard to feel like you're getting anything out of it.
It can really be a time suck if you don't have a plan behind it.
Yes. So the layers and the elements of execution, while no means are we an expert, we do have a couple owners who have done it really well.
Yeah.
And so we've just simply emulated what they've done, and that's been really good for us.
Yeah.
Recently, here we are, December 2023. We're starting to see some behavior trends with inflation kicking in and bugging people.
Yep.
December's always kind of a hit or miss month because of the distractions of Christmas and the holidays and whatnot. But we're starting to see more quotes. We're starting to see some little hesitancy. We're starting to see more interest in a financing program that we offer, things like that. So
Okay.
I think the market, I say that, but we're in a soft spot in the seasonality side. So, but I think it's softening a little bit, but I don't see any like major cliff coming down their way anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. So, 2020, 21, 22 were these anomaly years, right? Where we had this great opportunity. So a lot of our clients are kind of looking at their numbers in 2019 and comparing that to this year's growth, right? Or loss. How do you see 24 fitting into this?
I feel like the consumer, and whether it be my household or just a general consumer, I think we're going to see a lot of more of the same. I think we'll probably see very much, at least within a small deviation, another 2023. I know that when I was selling blinds, right before an election, I would have a couple of those, like think of a bell curve, right? Like most people really don't live and die based on the election.
Right.
But there's a couple people who really like how it is, and there's a couple people who really hope it changes.
Right.
And they feel like their money, or maybe they know their money, is tied to whoever's in power. But with that regard, like regardless of which, so I think there's something to watch in the election coming up in November of next year. I think I believe that there's got to be some sort of financial reckoning for all the money that was put in the system. I know we're feeling a little, some of it now through the inflation, but that was a lot of cash to put in the system.
Sure.
And so any political party that is in power, they're always going to kick the can or delay any sort of negative effect until the election occurs when they're close. And both sides would do the same thing. So that kind of gives me some feelings like we're going to have a lot of stability through 23. Like I think the parties that are in power don't want to have that major disruption. So they're going to do everything they can to keep it nice and cheery through 24.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the basis of why I'm saying that.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you too. I don't think it's going to be a rocket year. I think it's going to be more of the same, basically exactly what you said, which isn't great for sales, right?
Well, I mean, it's not great for growing sales, but if you've already built a strong business,
sure,
where it's probably the kind of year that's going to weed out some of the weaker players, though.
Yeah.
Those that maybe almost made money and they really need a big year next year to really kind of make it worth their while. I know as a franchise system, we've got owners who treat this as a job, not a business.
Right.
And so if they're not making great money at their job, being the business they, spent money on, then they tend to just want out and go find a job that will actually pay them more.
Yeah.
But if you build a business, an organization, if you built this self-sustaining snowball, if you don't grow 30% this year, that's okay because you already have a good, healthy business. So it just kind of depends on the stage and who's at the steering wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree. I think you're spot on there. So, all right. One different question for you. Okay. If money were no object, what's the craziest marketing, publicity, whatever stunt that you would like to do for Bloomin?
Oh my word. All right. I'm going to take a second and think about this.
Okay.
Because we're kind of an ornery little company. Like it would be something, I guarantee whatever I thought of, my brothers would be like, no way. Like, let's move down to like your fourth idea. Let's look at that one. I think it would be an entire series of like little shorts of like funny, mildly inappropriate skits that involved window coverings in some way or form or fashion. Like I've always had this dream that, because as a blind repair company, we get brought in to fix blinds when the dogs chew on them, right? So dog damage is a thing for us.
Sure.
And so we love the dogs for that. I'm like, coating louvers with peanut butter when nobody's looking. Yeah. And like, I've always had this dream of dressing up my youngest brother, Kevin, who's like 6'5".
Okay.
Like not a small individual. And he's not like one of those skinny 6'5s. Like he's a fill the room kind of 6'5". But I've always had this dream of dressing him up in a full body dog costume and giving him a baseball bat and letting him just go to town on a plantation shutter.
Oh, I love it.
And then like swinging in front of the camera like some cheesy like 1970s, like, hey, like, and talking like all kinds of like little advertisements and series and shorts about that, where we're like kind of mocking ourselves, like a mockumentary kind of feel.
Yeah.
I would love to have a production company be able to come in and take all of these little daydreams that I have about how to make light of the window covering company and turn that into something that everyone could consume.
I love that answer. It also speaks to the personality of the business, Bloomin.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. That's fantastic. You guys are not, by the book corporate, straight down the road. You've got a little variance there to, let's have some fun.
Yeah, we firmly believe that you can have fun and make money. I feel like that's probably a quicker path to it. But we are, like I said earlier, like we're an ornery little company. We love our sarcasm and our humor.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on today. If somebody wants to learn more about Bloomin, what's the best path for them?
I'd probably go to bloominblinds.com. There's a link all over the page that says, become a franchise. And that's just like the contact form. And then we begin to have those conversations about what it looks like. But that's probably the best way to go about it.
Okay. And of course, I'll link it in the show notes here, those kinds of things, so everybody can get to that easily. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, Kelsey, I appreciate you being on today. Appreciate your time. I know you're very, very busy. And anything else, any other last minutes of wisdom that you wanted to give to everybody?
So I guess I'll go two ways. One, again, consumer. So if anyone in the window covering industry is watching this, get involved in your community. Like go out and make sure that people know who you are, and see if you can try and get it to a point where like your referrals begin when you have a good enough relationship. If you saw that person in the grocery store, you would stop and have a conversation for 5 minutes. Like you can't just go in with a business card and expect the money to follow. You gotta truly build a relationship before the lead flow is really, really strong. So go out and get out there. Like you can't make any money with your van in the driveway. Okay.
You can in traffic.
Yeah. I guess, sorry, I probably should remember that I'm on a marketing. Okay, so let's go the other way. Spend more than you think you should if you know there's a good ROI. Like put your money where your heart is, and let the people you hire to drive your business, give them the ammunition they need to do it. But again, you talked about how it always comes back to sales. It also comes back to marketing.
Sure.
You can be awesome, but if nobody knows you or knows how awesome you are, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
So you got to build the biggest megaphone possible. I'll leave it with that. That way I don't chew up too much time.
I like that. That's good. So, well, thank you again. I appreciate your time today. I really do appreciate it. Listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, of course, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be bringing you more business owners, people in the industry, service providers, to help you guys grow and make your businesses bigger and better. And Kelsey, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, man. I had a lot of fun.